Coming up next on the voice of Alabama politics, looking beyond labels. Also, a big bet on the Alabama legislature. And state leaders are chasing redistricting.
Move your tail! Move your tail! You look like a girl out there. What's the matter with you?
Feel like a Kentucky Fried Idiot.
Or they're running around like a bunch of heads with their chicken cut off. Or is it chickens with their head cut off? You decide. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to the voice of Alabama politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, the invincible columnist and reporter, investigative reporter at APR.
And champion wasp chaser.
He did have an incident with a wasp, and he won.
Yeah, I did. He tried to take me out, but I got him. It's okay.
So you got him, baby.
That's right.
You're the Terminator.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, listen, something that's never seemed to be terminated in Alabama is its wish to redistrict the state against the court's decisions.
Again.
I mean, Susan, the court, the three-judge panel ruled once again that not only did these the 2023 maps violate the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, but also the 14th Amendment. Mm-hmm. And yet they ruled, and what did Alabama do?
Appealed it right back to the Supreme Court. This is the same Supreme Court that just a couple of weeks ago sent it back down to the three-judge panel and said, not our business. Y'all handle this.
Yeah.
The three-judge panel says, no, you can't use the maps. What do? Spend more money going right back to the Supreme Court. It's probably going to tell them the same thing if they take it up at all.
Josh, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. Because they want to redistrict everything and say it's partisan, but the courts have said it was racist. I mean, they flat out said that it was because they were trying to dilute the black vote. So can we honestly say that Alabama has spent a lot of money and time to prove that we're a racist state, or is this just coincidence?
I think there's a lot of racism built into this. I do think that there's also a lot of partisanship built into this as well.
It is.
But listen, let's be honest about what we're talking about here, because I think the basics are getting lost in this. Okay, and the basic fact is this: you can't partisan gerrymander in the state of Alabama without also racially gerrymandering in the state of Alabama. Okay? And you can whine and moan and bitch all you want to about how this is unfair because the Supreme Court said in Calais that, you partisan gerrymandering is okay. That's not what they said. They actually just said that that's not something that can be adjudicated by the court at this level, or that we've determined we're not going to adjudicate. But they did not say that it was okay, and actually encouraged states to make their own laws guarding against partisan gerrymandering. However, what's being prevented from happening here is racial gerrymandering under the guise of partisan gerrymandering, because to do so in this state of Alabama, because we are so segregated between the parties, it also disenfranchises a number of black voters. So essentially, the only harm that is being done here by saying you can't do this is basically saying, hey guys, we're not going to let y'all just flat out cheat. Okay, we're not going to let you cheat and dilute Democratic votes because those happen to be black votes as well. And you can whine and moan all you want to about that, but that's just the reality that you're facing. And what's really kind of callous and really kind of jackassery here, if that's a word, is the fact that you know full well what these folks have gone through to get this right to vote in the state of Alabama. And you don't give a damn that you're diluting that by whatever cause you're saying your cause is here just to win. You're saying their vote is not as important and it's okay to pack them into districts, even though you know the history of the fight that they had to go through to get to this.
Well, and it goes back to the winning at all costs. It's no longer a matter of fairness. It's do we win or lose? That's what really matters. And I know some of these lawmakers that have voted in this case, have helped with this case and all that. I do not believe they are racist. I do not. But I think we're living in a culture where you either win it all or you consider it a total loss. And to have 2 black districts in a state like Alabama where almost 30% of the population is black and just happens to vote Democrat is sort of, to me, we haven't learned anything from history.
Yeah,
I mean,
can I just say too, the what's baked into this is here's where the fairness is supposed to be. Where these people are whining about, oh yeah, why can't we do this and draw these districts up because we want to be partisan? Why don't you change your platform to attract those voters that aren't voting for you? Yes, that's what you're supposed to do. That's how this works. It's representative government. Change your damn platform and attract. You know how easy it would be for Republicans to attract a large number of African American voters right now? Stop being racist. That's all you got to do. For the most part, most African American folks are very conservative people. They like a lot of the Republican ideas, but they hate them because of the racist they do all the time.
And listen, Susan, I think one of the things that we lack understanding as a nation in the whole, Republicans are doing this gerrymandering. I mean, South Carolina just said, no, we're not going to do any more rigging in our state. But the fact is that we had the 1787 Constitution, and that lasted until Reconstruction. We had a war that changed the whole complexity of the country. Then we enacted the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, which should keep the fairness that was in the original Constitution. Many scholars call this the second Constitution. But we don't even know the history well enough to say, oh, this is why this is wrong, because the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment says this is wrong. And even the courts over the years have participated in this fraud to make it so that blacks can't vote. They can't, who can be a citizen, all this stuff.
Well, we're basically going back to pre-Civil War attitudes of states' rights. The state has the right to, alienate voters, has the right to alienate blacks. We might as well not have even had the Civil War the way they're acting about these maps.
And I think, Josh, and we don't have time to do it, this goes to the bigger questions of how the Trump administration is trying to overturn birthright citizenship. That came in under the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment is where you get that, where you get equal protection, where you get the right for every one man to vote, at least.
Literally said in their arguments in front of the Supreme Court that they weren't sure if Native Americans qualified as citizens under their birthright citizenship views. I mean, what are we talking about anymore? I mean, that's a fundamental sort of change of America, and I think it's one that most Americans don't respond very well to. And we've got to get back to a fairness level in this thing. And listen, I don't want redistricting to benefit Democrats either. I don't like that. I don't like them cheating either. Okay, I want it to be fair. I want it to be representative of the government. I want everybody to have a voice. I want there to be compromise in the halls of your state houses and in Congress, and I want people to have a voice in what's taking place.
All right, that's going to have to be the last word on this subject for now. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Your property is your home, your investment, and your legacy. Across the country, scammers are filing fraudulent deeds, often without the owner knowing until it's too late. REACT is a free alert system. If a document is filed using your name or tied to your property, you'll be notified within 24 hours.
Property fraud is a crime, and the faster we know it, the faster we can act.
Sign up today. Protect your property, protect your legacy.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, we did a report this last week on how a super PAC backed by DraftKings and FanDuel's, the big sports betting outfit, spent $9.3 million in Alabama's Republican primary. And at least 12 of the 17 candidates they backed won.
Yes, they did. Pretty impressive. Very impressive, in fact. But you got to look at, too, on the other side, you have, 4 or 5 candidates that Alpha backed that are going to, that's going to play into the mix as well as when gaming starts coming up again. But wow, what a plan. I mean, they really put together a good plan. They really got out there for those candidates, and they made a big difference in this election, or in the primary. Anyway.
I mean, Josh, the state seems to not want to wake up to the fact that 89% of the voters want to vote on gambling one way or the other. FanDuel and DraftKings backed this PAC and said, okay, we're going to change who's voting on it to let the people vote. They put their money into electing candidates just like Alpha did, but they got a lot more than Alpha did.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive run for them. It was. I wish. I'll say this. It wasn't as though they were trying to hide who they were.
No.
But they did kind of run it through a PAC, and I honestly kind of wish that everybody on the gambling side would not do that. I wish that they would donate under their names, under FanDuel, under DraftKings, under Wind Creek Entertainment, under the McGregor family for Victory Land. I wish that they would, the folks in in Greene County as well. I wish they would do this because I think. There's this tendency for so many people to paint gambling money anytime it comes in as this nefarious money. Ooh, dark gambling money's coming in, and it's so stupid at this point in time. I mean, it's like saying, ooh, gas station money's coming in. You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, beer money's coming. I mean, it's so dumb at this point in time. Just say, yeah, look, we're operating a business where adults go and choose to spend their money on a form of entertainment that they want to participate in, and we want Alabama to properly regulate this and allow us to operate in your state legally and bring in all the regulations and above board business practices that we operate with. And so here's a bunch of money for you guys to go in and legalize these things the way we've done in other states. We're not asking for anything out of the ordinary. Just treat us like you treat every other business. Allow us to operate there, regulate us properly, take the tax dollars from us that you want to take and fund your roads and bridges and hospitals and everything else. I don't understand why we're not doing that more and more and more and just owning this thing, while these folks aren't just own it. Come out and say, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to back these candidates. We're going to back candidates that back gambling, and we're not going to apologize for it because we're operating legally, and this is a good thing for the state of Alabama.
Well, and I guess the answer to that is they don't want the backlash, but but I don't disagree with your point. The main thing for me is that finally somebody got organized and said, okay, if you're not going to let the people vote, then we're going to get legislatures in there who will let the people vote. Nobody in here is being able to determine what gambling is unless it passes the will of the people.
Well, I mean, it's like Josh said, though. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out who's behind the PACs. All right? I mean, Josh and I do this every day, figuring out who's behind the PAC or who's not. And so but yeah, I agree with you in that it's pretty amazing to me that they got organized as fast as they did and were effective as they were with those dollars to get those candidates in there that will actually consider gaming.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that gambling is going to pass. It just all people want is a chance to vote on it. And if we can't get a vote on it, then the state just keeps losing more money. But Josh, you got a point?
No, yeah, I think it's absurd the way that we're going about this. I mean, I really do. I think we see all these other states around us. We see this happening everywhere. I mean, these gambling companies are some of the biggest companies in the world right now. The president, his kids, everybody's involved in these things at this point in time. And we're in the meantime running around acting as though this is some sort of crazy, idea we're way advanced. I mean, we're like one of the last states in the nation to approach this at this point.
Yeah.
Legalize the thing, come out and regulate it properly. That's what we're last in, is not regulating this thing properly. That's where we're having such a problem. Allow people to take the vote on this thing and put it in place so we don't have all these illegal acts taking place.
Right, all the back of the hairdressing shop, the back of the gas station, all of that going on illegally all over the state, and also not making tax money
and
on that either.
And also, you make a compact with the Porch Band of Creek Indians, who will pay the state a lot of money.
They've been wanting to pay the state for years. They've been offering it up, and the state keeps saying no.
Anyway, I agree. These groups need to get together and move forward on this issue because it needs to be settled. I want to talk real quickly about the Moore, Jared Hudson primary runoff. We've seen polls that show them basically neck and neck. We've seen polls that have one up, the other one down, one up, the other one down. All of it points to the fact that there are still some 29 to 30% of voters undecided, Susan, in a race where President Trump's endorsement of Barry Moore should be decisive. But right now, it doesn't seem to be decisive.
It should have shown up in the primary. That's where the strength of it should have been. But even though Trump has re-upped his endorsement, basically, of Barry Moore by the teleconference he had the other night, it only bumped his points, too. He only bumped by 2 points. So it's not, and we're seeing that in some other races around, too. But you would think in this one it would have a lot more influence. But people really like Jared Hudson, especially women.
Josh, the latest poll we saw, Barry Moore was getting the men, and Hudson was getting a lot of the women.
I mean, this is honestly, this is another where I'm rooting for the crack in the earth. But it's just. Honestly, I think Barry Moore's probably beating him by 15 points. Honestly, I think that's probably true. I think he's way up in this race. I think Jared Hudson is probably caps out at somewhere in the high 20s here. I mean, I think he got into he barely beat Steve Marshall, who nobody likes, and he slid into this race. And I think Barry Moore is probably going to win this thing fairly comfortably. But listen, if Jared Hudson wants to win, I mean, I think there's probably a couple of pathways. One would be, actually putting forth some policy positions, and other than just shooting stuff all the time. I mean, it's great that you killed a lot of Taliban, I guess. But I don't know how that necessarily applies to the work that you're going to do for the state and the Senate. You know what I mean?
I do.
And it's not. And listen, but I do congratulate him on some really awesome hair. Really awesome.
All right. Anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Your property is your home, your investment, and your legacy. Across the country, scammers are filing fraudulent deeds, often without the owner knowing until it's too late. REACT is a free alert system. If a document is filed using your name or tied to your property, you'll be notified within 24 hours.
Property fraud is a crime, and the faster we know it, the faster we can act.
Sign up today. Protect your property, protect your legacy.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. One of the things that is discouraging sometimes watching any race is that when the label matters more than the substance. I would argue, and very forcefully, that the voters of Alabama have no real idea of who Tommy Tuberville is. I would also argue that they do not know who Doug Jones is. They know the labels, they know coach and Republican, and they know former prosecutor and senator and Democrat. And I fear, Susan, that the reason that there's going to be an uphill battle for Jones to win this election is simply based on the label and not who is qualified for the job. Now, I'm not saying Tuberville has his style, Jones has his style, but I fear that people are not going to look beyond the label.
I do too. And I think this election, more than any in recent memory, it's important for the voters to actually study who these people are, watch their speeches, meet them in public, go to their web pages, whatever. Because this new governor coming in is going to walk into a healthcare crisis, federal scrutiny over prisons, the disaster that we have is we call it education, and many more problems like that. So we have to have somebody that's qualified to understand those problems and to help guide the state into solving them.
And Josh, we're also going to have some budget problems coming up.
Yeah.
But it is not style that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about substance.
Yeah.
And we see totally different styles and totally different approaches to how the office would be handled. But we're in politics. We understand this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you communicate to other people. And I'm not advocating. I just want people to understand the labels are standing in the way.
Well, I mean, I think that's true in other races than just this one as well.
No,
I think
it is.
That, we've
It
argued this a bunch on here. And can I just say that photo of Tommy Tuberville behind you always reminds me of the episode of the Andy Griffith Show where Barney's in the choir and he can't sing. It's...
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, really. I mean, Tommy Tuberville may be a beautiful singer. I'm not saying anything about his singing ability. I'm just saying that when I see it, it just reminds me of that episode. I don't know why. It's the black and white, I think. But it's you're right though in substance, and that's what I argue so often. I constantly make this point. I feel like I write this column at least twice or three times a year about voting for your own interests, finding people that care about the same issues you care about and are addressing them in a way that is meaningful to you. And I think you should do that up and down the ballot. Look, I get people are busy. People are busy. They've got lives. They're running around, and the traditional news sources have been so muddied up. Have been unfairly muddied up by people on the far right and sometimes people on the far left as well, telling you who you should trust and who you shouldn't trust. And I think a lot of people have tuned that out, and they get a lot of it from social media. And so a lot of it is really superficial fluff that comes into play.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I feel like if you broke this thing down, I mean, from my point of view, obviously, I think everybody knows that I believe that Doug Jones is a much more qualified, a much more serious candidate that has taken these things seriously. And people come at me with this idea of this exact same superficial thing that you're talking about. Like I can't be fair to Tommy Tuberville simply because he's a Republican. And that's not true. There are Republicans who I like out there. I don't necessarily agree with them and wouldn't necessarily vote for them on things, but I think they are more serious in how they've approached their job and their duties to this state than what Tommy Tuberville has so far. And maybe he's going to be a different governor, but he so far has not demonstrated a willingness to do that. And as I've pointed out numerous times, that man is in a more unique position than possibly anyone ever in this state. He has contacted with so many people at grassroots level, people of all races and economic abilities and things. You know, everywhere. He's gone all over this state as a recruiter for the Auburn football team and sat in those living rooms. He knows the struggles. He knows what's taking place. He could be somebody that is really working and beneficial for the state, but he's got to choose to do that. And so far, that hasn't been the case.
And I agree. He's talked about these hot button issues, Susan, that frankly, from my conversations with traditional Republicans and moderate Republicans, is not popular. But with the MAGA base, it is popular. And we need to hear more from Doug Jones. I think now that the primary's over, we will. But again, we've all studied these men. We know their backgrounds. We know their finances, not finances. We know their good sides and their bad sides. But I don't know that the regular voters are getting there.
They don't. And like Josh says, most of them don't have time to get there. But I would like to see more substance out of Tuberville as far as not so much the hot button issues, but what does he plan to do about the crises in our state? I know Doug
with
Jones
specifics.
With
specifics. You know, and look, you know, this is what I think we ought to recommend to people is I understand you don't have time. Pick 5 things that are important to you. Pick 5 things, whatever you feel like these 5 things are. And listen, your list is different from everybody else's. It can be anything, whatever's important to you. Pick those 5 things and try to find the answers that from these men and anybody else running for office to answer those 5 concerns for you. Whatever, and pick the person that best answers those questions for you. You know, hell, write to them. They're public servants. Talk to them. Talk to their staffs. Call them up and ask them, you know, hey, here are my 5 things. How are you going to solve these? And don't accept fluff and nonsense from them. You know, drill down and tell them you want specifics. And I think that's where I think everybody can do that. And if you can at least just narrow it down to 5, you'll be way ahead of the game.
And I hope that, I know he likes to be called Coach. I'm uncomfortable with it. I hope Coach and Doug Jones will stand on a stage in front of a nonpartisan journalist, me, and answer questions so that people will listen and hear what they've got to say. And I would say to them all, we will happily sponsor that event. And you know, you don't like me, we can pick a moderator that you do like. But I think we should have a statewide debate televised so that everybody can see how you handle yourself when faced with tough questions. But unfortunately, we've run out of time because we've been asking tough questions. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.